Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. The death of a Minnesota woman by an ICE agent has raised awareness about the dangers of citizens getting in the middle of law enforcement operations. Renee Good was shot and killed while trying to impede ICE officers during an operation in Minneapolis. The question is, when does constitutionally protected protest cross the line into creating dangerous or even potentially dangerous, deadly situations? The Pinal County attorney is proposing a bill at the Arizona legislature that would impose serious penalties for people who interfere with officers during a lawful arrest. Brad Miller joins me on Newsmaker right now. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We haven't met before today. I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely.
Tell me why you came up with this idea, and did it predate this incident in Minneapolis? Is this something you'd been looking at before that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it does predate this situation in Minneapolis, but it's something that we have been seeing happening, especially in our county and in other places around the United States. I think it's absolutely necessary that people understand what the law is, and we need to draw a clear constitutional line as what is protected speech, which we want to protect, but we also need to understand how to protect officers.
And what do you believe that line is?
I think the line is when somebody interferes with a lawful arrest, when they're blocking cars, when you're standing in the middle of the road, when you create a dangerous situation for people trying to conduct lawful operations.
The people who were involved in this Minneapolis, and we've seen this repeated around the country where these raids have gone on, they believe this is unlawful. So they're going to move heaven and earth to try to stop it.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing to believe something, it's another thing for the facts and the circumstances to occur. I think there's a big misnomer about what ICE is doing and how they operate. And I think I've told this on other news stations, is when ICE conducts an operation, because it's the same thing that we do for my office, and then I'm also in the United States Marine Corps, it's the same way we'd operate in the Marine Corps, is you have what's called an operational plan. And in that operational plan, you have certain lists of people, their crimes, and how you want to arrest them. You've done recon in the particular area to find out where these folks are at, and then you execute on that particular plan. And that's the same thing that ICE is doing. So when people see ICE pulling a vehicle over, they think, well, they're just targeting that one particular vehicle. They don't realize that there's been weeks and weeks of workup in order to pull that vehicle over to effectuate a lawful arrest. So there's a lot of background that people are missing.
I think you're right about that. And this is a broader discussion, but I think this is where public opinion on what ICE is doing is a little bit divided right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you can clear this up, because the statute that is overarching all of this, people say, well, if they get the criminals, great. But if they're getting people just here illegally, I'm not really on board with that.
Yeah.
But ICE doesn't make that determination in the field. If
Correct.
they come across somebody who is not here legally, even if they've been a good citizen for 10 years,
Yep.
they're going to get caught up in this, right?
Yeah, correct. So federal law is very clear on this particular issue, and Title VIII is very clear. If a person has come into the country illegally, they have violated federal law, and therefore they can be arrested and then deported. That's exactly what is occurring.
Congress made that law.
Congress.
This isn't Trump or ICE. Congress made that law.
Correct. And we actually have video of Barack Obama's administration, Joe Biden's administration, Bush's administration, Reagan's administration using immigrations and customs enforcement to enforce Title VIII, which is illegal reentry cases all across our country. And so, yeah, this is something that is standard, that's been going on literally for decades. And now the public outcry appears to be and feels like it's a political issue. And what we need to turn this into is a legal issue, something that people have thought about, deliberated about, and we need to tone down the rhetoric, which is the purpose of my bill.
When you see the interaction with Miss Good, and we won't even get into whether the officer was justified or not, what do you see in that video?
What I see in a video is you see an individual that has decided to put up a fight, is going to attempt to stop federal law enforcement from enforcing the law. And that's something that citizens cannot do. And that's something that my bill clarifies, that we need to codify in Arizona law because it's clear under federal law. But you see an individual literally blocking a road. She had blocked it for several minutes. The officers had told her to leave, and therefore she needs to leave. It's the same thing that we would see under Arizona law. If a person, even during a traffic stop, receives a lawful order to get out of their vehicle, they must get out of the vehicle or they can be arrested. Now, we may not like that, and we can change the law, but that's something that the law does allow.
Okay, this bill that you're putting through down at, isn't this covered by current law?
No.
No.
No. No, that's why we're putting it out. We need to make this clear. That's part of what the law does, is it attempts to tone down the political rhetoric. That's what laws should be. It's like we can go read the law, see what it is, see what our responsibilities are. You know, in legal philosophy, we call it a normative law.
So we don't have anything in Arizona that covers this?
Not this, no.
Federal statute?
Federal statute does.
Okay. Do you need it, or is it
I think we absolutely need it, because we need people to understand what they can and cannot do. We need to tone down the political rhetoric. We need to tone down what people are doing so that somebody else doesn't get shot, doesn't get hurt. That's the last thing that we want.
I mean, I think somebody can look at that video and say two things may be true. She may actually have thought, well, okay, I've pushed it far enough, I'm going to leave.
Correct, yeah.
But she doesn't understand that move, and the officer may misinterpret it.
Yep.
And that two things could be true. She may not have been trying to run him over.
Yep.
But that move put her in serious jeopardy.
Yeah, I think the thing that hurts her case is everything that happened beforehand. You know, she received training on how to agitate ICE officers. She had been blocking the road for several minutes beforehand. So all the things that led up to that particular point. And then you have an officer that had just recently been dragged by a vehicle. So
that same officer?
That same exact officer.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute, because what do you do about the groups who are guiding and coaching these folks? Is that something that law enforcement is looking at as well? Because some of that coaching may be putting ideas in people's mind that put them in jeopardy.
Well, people always have a First Amendment right, and they're going to voice things and opinions that I think the general public don't agree with. And I don't think the general public agrees with people teaching others how to agitate lawful police officers, lawful arrests, and things like that. However,
no matter how noble,
I don't think people agree with teaching people how to agitate police officers so that they can catch something on video. Now, protection of First Amendment rights is something that we hold sacred and we need to uphold. So the fact that they're doing it, I think, is protected by the First Amendment. Now, you can even look at some of their pamphlets of what they put out, and at the bottom there's an asterisk saying some of these things might not be legal. So even they understand that some of the actions that they're teaching and proposing are not legal. That's the thing, that's the piece that I think people need to be careful about.
We've been hearing for weeks now that ICE plans operations in Arizona.
Yes.
Do you think that's coming?
It is coming, yes.
It is coming?
It is, yes.
Okay, with that in mind, how do you get this message out there to people who may want to interfere and stop what they really don't like? And I understand their feelings, but they may not be aware of the jeopardy, the personal jeopardy they're putting themselves in.
I think there's a couple of things, but the most important thing is let's tone down the rhetoric. Now, there's a lot of police departments that are a little afraid to work with ICE, and I know some of the public don't want our local police departments working with ICE. But I think we should look at this in the exact opposite way. Most people, I believe, trust our local police, but they don't trust ICE. So I think we should encourage our local police departments, county attorneys' offices, and other departments to work with ICE, to hold them accountable to ensure that they're following the rules. So I think we need to look at it a little bit differently. And if we had more local participation, we would have local accountability, and we could now question those folks to see how these operations are being conducted.
Obviously, the problem with that is that it takes officers off the street who are trying to keep our streets safe for other crimes.
Well, not really. Not as much, I think, as people believe. There's a lot of departments that have a task force model that work with ICE or work with our local federal law enforcement officers. So when you have an ICE operation, it's not just ICE that's on that operation. Oftentimes you'll see HSI, the FBI, ATF, and other federal departments. I mean, even my office, we have for years, probably for multiple decades, worked with federal partners. You know, I even meet once a month with our federal partners to discuss what operations are happening in our community, what they're going to be doing, how we could potentially integrate, and then hold them accountable for the things that they're doing too.
So you believe there will be ICE actions here?
There absolutely
That it's
will be.
going to ramp up?
Yes.
Time frame?
I don't know the exact time frame. Those are not conversations that I've been read into at
Are
this
you
point.
worried about trouble?
I am not, because I think that people in Arizona are smart enough to understand that what ICE is doing is legal. But we still encourage people to voice their First Amendment rights. We still understand that people are passionate about these things. But we need to tone down the rhetoric, get rid of some of the violence and some of the interfering actions, and I think everybody will be okay.
Brad Miller, Pinal County Attorney, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
When we come back on Newsmaker, several major freeway projects going on. We're going to hear from ADOT veteran Doug Ninsel coming up next on Newsmaker.